Chit Chat is sponsored by Fun Again Games, where everyone is welcome at our table, and your source for hard-to-find imports, liquidation games, new releases, and much more. Be sure to visit funagain.com to check it out. It's episode 110 of Chit Chat, and everyone's talking about AI art, and we've got some thoughts. Sure, it's cool, but what is the practical impact on art, the artists that create it, and the board game hobby that relies on it? It's definitely a big topic, but we save time for some games too. Welcome back to Chit Chat. This is episode 110, and of course we're going to be talking about board games and all the same stuff that we always do, but tonight our topic is a bit of a hot topic. Hopefully I won't make Ryan laugh.
Hot topic is an understatement.
It is AI art, and specifically AI art as it relates to the potential practical, impacts on the board game industry. Because there are plenty. There's lots of arts in the board game.
Oh yeah.
If you haven't noticed.
Yeah, a lot of art.
And if you also haven't noticed, if you're on social media at all, everybody has been posting, except me. I don't know. Have you guys posted anything like that?
No, I haven't.
Have been posting those like, hey, look at me, as 14 different artist interpretations, because there's all sorts of apps doing the same sort of thing. This happens like every year for the last couple of years in terms of like an app coming out that, hey, look, I'm old. Hey, look, I'm a baby. And now it is basically taking artwork from a giant sample size and applying your imagery using some of those things. It brings up some topics. We're going to get to that in a second. But before we get to that, because it's going to have some ups and downs, we're going to start on an up. And that is that we have a winner from last episode. If you remember, Crafting Kings gave us, or we're giving away a pledge for a bag and or mat. Mm-hmm. And we have a winner. That winner's name is Scott Miller.
Scott Miller.
Congratulations, Scott.
Congratulations, Scott. Yeah, we will email you because we have your email and sort out all the details. So let's dive into it so that we can get to the games we've been playing, because we have been playing quite a few games. AI art. Who wants to start?
Before we start,
yes.
For those who aren't even aware of what's going on, because this is a huge controversy, because there are apps like Midjourney and things like that are literally, you can feed prompts into this to create phenomenal art images.
Pretty insane.
I mean, these things look, for the most part, like professional level quality.
Yeah, and just so you know, if you haven't seen it, it's so good in some cases that I've seen some posts that show, hey, I put in some prompts and this came out, and I questioned whether that was real.
Yes.
I thought, surely someone did this because it looked that good.
Well, what's getting me too is it can put out images that even look like photographs.
Right.
Yeah.
Really photorealistic.
That looks super photorealistic. And so there is a huge debate that's going on in a lot of different professional circles about this art, whether this is real art, whether it's copyrightable, whether it's ethical to use this art, and whether, and I think this is the crux of it, whether this is considered theft, because these apps were built by analyzing millions of pieces of artwork, a lot of which were copyrighted pieces that they pulled from movies and from books and other, even board games. Like, it just pulled all that artwork and analyzed all of it without any consent.
Yeah, and I want to say, before we get any further into this, we're not experts on this subject. We're not professional artists, not that I know of, or either.
No, we work with a lot.
No published work yet.
Yeah.
But we wanted to just bring it up to discuss it. From our perspective, a lot of people have been discussing it. We can share our thoughts down in the comments. You can as well. But we just wanted to bring it up and sort of talk about it philosophically.
Open the conversation.
Open up the conversation. We don't have any expertise on whether it's legal or not, whether it's theft or not, things like that. But we have enough knowledge to know, kind of think to ourselves, I wonder. And certainly the idea of whether it's ethical, that's always kind of somewhat of a personal choice.
Yeah.
And not just if it's ethical to use or produce, but also if it's ethical to use this artwork in a commercial aspect and sell it as part of a product. And in our particular field, that would be board games. Is it ethical to completely fund a board game's artwork, generate all your cards by using this app and never hire an actual artist? I don't know. I mean, that's a really tough question.
Yeah, and I think it's a question too, because as a board game publisher, you might pay a company to create these images for you, but you also don't have to have artists in the background either. They could just be using that AI to generate it. So as a publisher, I'm I did pay for art. I paid for them. I mean, it'll probably be a nominal fee compared to what you would usually pay for an artist to individually draw each of these pieces. But like, where does the line really start, right? If they're like,
It is-
I did pay for it. I don't know what you're doing in the background. Don't tell me.
It's super complicated.
Right.
They could be paying a company. I mean, they could go to an artist.
Yeah.
And artists, in fact, I've read some articles just in the last 2 days. There are artists that have used this sort of thing to sort of spark their, imagination, get a starting point from using that sort of thing. So, that it's a very complicated subject for sure.
It's a nuanced topic because there's that whole other element of disclosure. If I buy artwork for someone, if I go onto websites that sell stock art, do I know if I'm buying somebody's hard work, designed stock art, or am I buying some AI program where they spit out 60 images of stock art in an afternoon?
Yeah.
I don't know, and I'll start there. This is a hard line for me that I can say. I think it should always be disclosed. If you are selling AI art, well, there are people that don't think that way. But if you're selling it, if you're adding it into your board game, or my field is role-playing games, if you're illustrating your RPG with AI art, it needs to be known and printed in the description, inside the book. Like, you need to make sure people are aware of what they're buying, because there are people that stand against it and do not want to support AI art in any way, and you don't want them to feel tricked or slighted or,
Yeah, for sure. I think everyone can agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree as too. I would say like there's still nuances even there though. Like, what do you consider AI art, right? What we're talking about is where there's a huge data set, they pull all this information together, using a program, they programmatically are able to create new images by saying like, let's take a little of this, take a little of that, let's put it together. But what about like filters, right? Like you've seen those there's plenty of ads of like, make your dog a Pikachu or like a Pokemon, right? And like, is that someone really creating the art using your dog's picture? Or is it just using your dog's picture, putting a filter on top that like Pokemon's it, right?
Yeah.
And like you see the Snapchat filters, like you can make your face into like an anime face. So where's the line there, right? Like that's not an AI doing it. It's one specific program using a filter based on the image you give it as a template. But it's still like, was that too much?
That to me feels a little different because somebody designed that filter, somebody programmed that filter to do a specific thing.
Yep.
When it comes to AI art, especially AI art that draws from the databases, I think that's where for me it gets very gray, because these databases have been compiled reportedly, and I've seen a lot of reports about this, of even like private images. I've even heard of like the HIPAA, like art, like medical images being pulled into some of these databases. Again, reportedly. So copyrighted art and stuff like that, all of that stuff ends up in these databases. Stuff that you post to Facebook. Some of your photos that you posted to Facebook might be in that database training this AI. And it's like, how, even if you're not using those photos to make money, which some people are, how do you feel? Like, what's your comfort level that this AI has thousands of your photos and it's training the app?
That I can answer. I don't care. Like me personally, you can take any photo of me. This is not an open invitation, by the way.
In the comments below.
My attitude towards anything I post online is that it has now become public, consumption. Everyone has access to it. I don't really have any control whether it's legal or not for them to do with it what they're going to do. You have to know that anything you post on the internet.
But what if it's not posted, right? Like people can use these apps where they say like put in like 15 of your photos and then we'll spit you back all of your images. If some of those photos are things you didn't post online, that company now has your data and it's in their databases.
Sure, I put that in the same category. If I actively give anything, whether it's posting online or giving an app company my photos, I've made that decision, and I was stupid if I did if they use it. Otherwise, I just don't do it.
Well, it's a little different for you too, only because you're not making money off of those images. So for people like, for example, that are cosplayers or models, people that do professional photography or like stand in, like imagine being a professional model and you have done thousands and thousands of photos that you've gone and posed for and have been paid for. Now somebody can spit out your image in any ad they want.
Oh, sure. So
without you getting paid for it. Your likeness, your style is now available for anybody to add to their game or their book or their billboard without your consent. That's where I think it gets a little more difficult.
Yeah, and I want to point out that is my decision. That's not what I think everyone should take, but my attitude towards this, and that's why I don't put a lot of stuff.
that's
Like if
also
an app asks
for
for a bunch of that
personal-
stuff, I go no, and then I just don't do the thing. Just make that decision for yourself. But actually, I want to pull it back to something that's more of a philosophical question regarding just learning art, a style, and then reproducing that.
Okay.
Because I think you could look at someone's art style. Say there's an artist who has a very specific art style. And I like, you know what? I'm going to emulate that as an artist myself. And I'm going to spend my next 4 years really looking at that and creating that. And now, ethical questions aside from whether a human should even do that or not so that they can draw in the style of someone else. But with that said, I think tons of artists do that.
Yeah.
Like everyone draws inspiration from other people, and it can be sometimes a fine line between inspiration and basically copying.
That's the lie. That's the whole problem, is that thin line.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is a gray area for sure, because there's plenty of art out there that's like, oh, clearly you were inspired by this artist because your style is there. So my point is, someone could spend 4 years and then be able to basically do that again. Computers and AI
Sure.
are just faster at doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Now, I'm glossing over the technical aspects of, are they learning that and spitting it out? Or are they literally just copying it like a scanner would and then kind of
Like a collage.
putting some makeup on it or something? But, what do you think? Is it different?
Well, to me, like what makes art, right, is like it's that creativity, it's that innovation. And I think that the argument a lot of people make is that the AI can't do the exact same thing, right? Even if you program and you put in all the different inputs you can and you put out all the different outputs you can, it's not necessarily going to create something innovative, right? Because it's just being based off of a data set. So true art would be doing something truly novel. But I also would say that a lot of artists today, in order to get paid, especially if they're working on commission or working off of specific things, do have to do specific styles or do have to do things that are similar to other things already done before. Like you think about like Henry Ford's, like if I asked what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse, right? Like, so if people ask what kind of art do they want, they say, I want something like this. And so then an artist can't really be free to like make something super novel because they're being paid to do something like the thing that they were given. So I think it brings it all back to the point of like, is it ethical to do this? Is it taking money away from artists? And I would say like, it's a shame that like we have to have art where like you have to use it to survive, right? Instead of being able to just be freely in a society where we could just create and
That is the
and then do
conversation
something
that I've
super
had.
fun.
I mean, that's a much bigger conversation.
I
but
know.
if we could solve that, that'd be awesome.
Well, I mean, honestly, and this comes back to this, right? It's a new form of automation, and this is something that we have seen for the history of the world.
Sure.
Right? We were talking about calligraphy earlier.
Yeah.
Or even before that, the monks that had to handwrite everything. As soon as people learned to write, and as soon as like the printing press became available, all of those people were out of jobs. Right? And I know this is dramatic, but it's happening now with like auto workers in auto plants.
I mean, it has been for a
that
long time.
they've all lost their jobs because of automation. And like, I think this is the first time for a lot of us that we've seen in this modern time a creative position like artists being replaced. But it has happened. It happened when we went from radio to film. It happened when people were able to just produce, edit their own videos with apps on your computer. Like a lot of technological advancements have put a lot of people out of work.
Sure.
And that sucks. Like that does suck.
Yeah, for sure.
Like and so I don't want any artists out there to lose out. I don't want that to happen.
Right. Exactly.
But what I think, whether or not you support this AI art or not, whether or not you think it's ethical or not, I don't personally see it going anywhere. In fact, I see it just getting better and better and better.
Oh, you mean you don't see it going
Like I don't
away?
see it going away.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't see it leaving.
I thought you meant it was a dead end.
No, I don't see it going. Sorry, I don't see it going away. And,
No,
and,
it's definitely not.
and I think a
going
lot
away.
of artists, I think a lot of the heat from this debate is artists having to face that idea of like,
For
do
sure.
I,
Well,
do
now
I,
what?
Now what? Right? Do I
Yes.
adapt to this tool and just get really good at doing this tool? Like I'm a writer, and I see it happening already. It's starting to happen with
Oh,
writing.
with Chat
Oh, yeah.
GP?
Yeah, where you
Yeah.
could put in a few prompts and it will literally spit out a story or an essay.
It's it like the whole topic of what's going on with AI just in this last year, if not a couple years, is kind of mind-blowing. It is definitely something that's here to stay, like you said, and it's going to be changing more and more, not just art in the traditional sense, but all sorts of things. And because it's AI, it is going to start to tread into those more creative avenues than it has in the past, where it's traditional automation, it is really non-thinking.
Right,
Or
taking
manual
process
labor,
and making it more
technical
efficient.
work, yeah.
Whereas this, and I use the term thinking loosely,
Well,
but
and
this
even
is
creative,
kind of like,
right? Even creative is a pretty loose
yeah,
term
this is
here.
collecting a lot of information and making choices and decisions internally to spit something back out. It's not like picking something up and moving it over here.
Sure.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere, and it is unfortunate. And like we said off the bat, this is not something we are experts on, but we did want to talk about how it relates to board games specifically. And I'm kind of interested, do you guys think we'll see any game publishers tread into this area of not only using the art, but honestly, this has entered the zeitgeist so much that I could see someone even adapting the theme of this into a game, perhaps.
Sure.
I mean, it is definitely a thing it's here to stay, and it's a part of our lives. How do you see it in the board game?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll definitely come into board games at some point. My big question is like when, right? Like who's going to be the first ones who are like ventures into it and says like, oh, okay, we'll take the flak for it and we'll be the first ones to do it. Because I feel like once the gates open, it might become a snowball thing pretty quickly, just depending on how it's received.
It could be the opposite. Like I wonder who will do that, because there's a lot of people that will probably never support that publisher again.
Yeah.
If
Sure.
they choose to only use AI artwork for their board game, I don't see any artist wanting to work with them in the future.
No,
so they
that
better
would
be
be-
sure that this works,
Yeah.
because if they do this and it backfires
Flops, yeah.
and they go on to the next project and they try to hire traditional artists, they might not find a lot of people eager to work with them.
But it is a challenging thing because, I mean, and we're not just picking on the board game industry, but any industry, when they find something that's more profitable for them
Sure.
and there's not enough flack to counterbalance that new more profit, it's going to be a tricky thing. I mean, think of it as it relates just to the way board game industry has embraced crowdfunding versus traditional brick and mortar.
Sure.
The brick and mortar hated that. But guess what? It's a more
Yeah.
profitable avenue for them, so they've continued to do that, and the brick and mortars had to struggle. And I don't want to diminish that at all. I feel bad that that sort of thing happens, but this is sort of the next step for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary. Like, I'll just say that. It is very scary, and I know that there are a lot of people watching this who are feeling that right now. Because
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what do you do? Well, you were talking about style earlier, right? And while I think, like, there are some styles, like, okay, this is in the style of Picasso or whatever, but there are some people who have made a name for themselves.
Micho.
Yeah, like Miko. Like, what if...
Someone could probably, even right now, say in the style of Micho and have...
Yeah.
There's so much of his art out there.
Or like Manny for
Yeah.
Dice Throne. Like, what
Yeah.
if somebody's popping out art that looks just like Dice Throne characters? Or like the Oatmeal, that minimalist style that's become so
Yeah.
iconic. People are just putting out comic panels that look just like Oatmeal. That feels problematic.
Oh,
And-
for
and
sure.
And what I would like to see, and I don't know, like you said, we're not experts, but some kind of legal ramification. If somebody like the Manny Tremblays or Andrew Bosley, like we just played Unconscious Mind, and like you look at those dream cards and you're like, they're gorgeous, and this is Andrew Bosley's style, and I will always see that art style, and I will always think of him. And if I don't know that that's AI generated, then I'm just thinking I'm seeing his artwork,
Sure.
and that to me feels like a huge problem.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But I would say also the legal system is always behind. So I think
Yeah.
we're going to have a lot of like hot button issues and like specific examples before legislation actually comes around.
Well, yeah, it's like it's going to be
we're
the
way
Wild West
behind
for a
on
while.
legislation around technology. So
And
Yeah.
technology moves so fast and legislation moves so slow. Like, they should have been ready for AI like this. Like, there should have been stuff. This should have been planned for years. They
Well,
should
it
have been
is-
talking about what's going to happen when AI starts replacing everyone's jobs,
Yeah. That's
creative or otherwise.
going to be challenging. Hopefully, I mean, I have sympathy for everyone out there affected. So far, it hasn't created YouTube content creators.
but
to
it
do
could.
Or maybe it has. Maybe one of us right now
I mean,
is.
I'm not really here.
I'm definitely artificially intelligent.
I mean, you say that, but I've seen AIs put together like movie clips.
Well, sure. I mean,
And
this
it
is
looks-
a huge topic.
could
Forget
happen.
art for a second. I mean, we're living in a world where one of us could be fake. Like, people can use...
Oh, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, like literally, you could be watching
Like,
this
I
video,
think therefore I am.
and this is someone else, and my face has been put on there.
I mean, James Earl Jones sold his voice to Disney
To
so they could
recreate
recreate Darth
in
Vader's
perpetuity,
voice
right?
forever. So in 100 years, somebody could say David Waybright voice. We have so much voice on the internet that people
Oh, yeah.
can download and analyze.
I'm never talking again.
Right? It's scary. I mean, it's almost to me so scary that I just have to say like whatever, because I don't
Sure.
think that I don't know what I can ever do.
That's what I was
about
saying
that.
earlier. If whatever happens, I did
I-
what I did, and I live with it.
I mean, imagine like any celebrity right now, like anyone that's an actor.
Yeah.
Like looking at the fact that 100 years from now, Tom Cruise could still be in movies long after he's dead.
Well, he might still be alive and in
Okay, well,
movies 100 years from
that's
now.
true.
I think he's 106 now.
But it is a scary topic, and I think that what we're seeing right now with this art discussion is just the beginning of
It is.
a giant conversation that needs to happen about
Sure.
what creativity is going to look like in a world where AI can do all of that. It's wild.
Yeah, so let us know what you think about this topic. It is a touchy subject, so if you're in the comments, definitely be polite with one another.
Be kind to each
Be
other.
kind. That is first and foremost.
It is-
Please be kind in our comments. And quite frankly, if you're not, we will delete
We
you.
don't want to delete anyone's comments.
But now let's talk about something happier. Something about the games we've been playing. Because we have been playing a lot of games lately. And in fact, here towards the end of the year, we've been playing a lot of games, not necessarily just for fun, but we haven't been doing a lot of previews and stuff lately. We've been doing a lot of reviews and playing games to get more content like that up. What's some of the games? What have you played recently? I haven't played much with you in the last week.
I've been at PAX. I was
That's
at
true.
PAX. I actually
Why?
went to PAX for a little bit longer. I stayed with one of the members of our Discord, Techie21, John, who's a good friend of mine. I actually went early and stayed after so that we could just hang out and play games. And we
Nice.
played a
Nice.
lot. We played a lot at the con as well. So I got to see a lot of games at PAX, a lot of Essen games that I had missed. I finally
Oh.
got to play The Great Split.
Cool.
I got to play Wandering Towers, which is the new Kiesling and Kramer game that just came out. I got to play Chaos Order, which is the new Circadians game. We played Unconscious Mind there. So got to play a bunch of new stuff and a lot of Essen releases. One that really stuck with me, though, is Heat from Days of Wonder.
The racing game?
This is the racing game. This is from the same people that did Flamme Rouge. And if you remember, if you used to watch our channel back in the day when Flamme Rouge came
Flamme
out,
Rouge. We all like Flamme Rouge.
huge Flamme Rouge
Flamme Rouge
fans.
is a good racing game.
It's a good racing game, and I think that what they've done with Heat is even better because if you remember, Flamme Rouge uses that deck of cards, and now it's more of a deck builder because you are able to actually build your deck of racing cards over the course of a game. You can take some risky maneuvers. You could take corners too fast. You can shift multiple times to move more spaces and play higher or more cards with higher values, but you're taking heat into your engine, and eventually you can take so much
Interesting.
heat that your deck, you might end up with a handful of heat and it causes you to spin out. So you could have these issues within any one given race, and it's fun from start to finish, and it's not hard to learn.
No pun intended.
No point, you're right. But what really grabbed me and what really is drawing me into Heat is it's a campaign game. And you're playing over multiple races. There's 4 different maps contained in the box. And there's deck building elements that are going to happen in between games.
Really?
You're going to be able to upgrade your car. You're going to be able to upgrade your deck. And in typical campaign style, you're going to be opening up new cards. You're going to be adding new things to the board.
Is there hidden stuff like
I
envelopes?
don't know. I didn't go
Oh.
through all the content, so I don't know if it's
Sure.
hidden. But I know there's weather mechanics that they're going to be adding. Some of the races might have different, be in rainy weather. There's some different placement points that you get different things based on how you place in any one given game, and so you can play, and it plays 6 people.
Oh, I was going to ask
So
player count.
yeah,
6 people, that's
it's
a lot.
pretty high, and to get have that ability to play this kind of campaign over several races while you're upgrading that deck and while you're upgrading your car and adding
How
in
long
these
is the
new
race
elements.
usually?
Yeah, that's what. What's the?
So
how
we-
long is a race, and what is a campaign like? An evening Or is
no,
a campaign session after session?
You're looking, each race is like a standard board game. So like about an hour. We were about 90 minutes for our, we had a 5-player game, and it was about 90 minutes that we played. You raced we did 2 laps around the course. But it's a lot of fun, and it's like, it manages to capture that like intensity of a racing game, like Flamme Rouge or like Downforce, but without the betting aspect. So like, unlike Downforce, it's just you and your car.
You're
not focusing on what everyone else is doing. And there's a lot of risk reward, like taking some of these corners at really high speed and like crossing your fingers that you don't spin out when you get to the other side.
That sounds cool.
I'm not very risky playing.
No?
No.
No, it
I
sounds...
always play very conservatively, so I feel like I would do poorly.
Emily's
in this
gonna be
game.
driving in first gear, just.
But I don't want to talk forever about it because I'd like to talk more about it on the channel. But the whole idea of like the deck building is so cool. Like the way that you're getting heat for taking these risks, but you can always downshift into a lower gear, which let you discard heat back
out of your hand or something. Okay.
So like you can kind of control that, and so the whole game is like taking just so much heat and then getting some of it back, and it's a very cool flow.
Interesting.
I think maybe not you, but I think you would really enjoy it because I know you like those racing games.
That sounds fun.
You're not risk adverse.
Yeah, no, not at all. Speaking of not being risk averse, I played a Lacerda game. And now I have played a Lacerda game in the past. I played Lisboa. I played Bot Factory.
Oh, that's
that
true.
Counts. It is designed by Vital Lacerda. But in the sort of one of the traditional games, the bigger, heavier games, I'd only had experience playing Lisboa. And that was a long time. In fact, Vital Lacerda taught us himself.
Yeah,
otherwise I wouldn't have been
Was that like
able to learn
Origins
it.
like several years ago? Right?
Oh, it was a long time ago. It was actually over Zoom call. Or something, not Zoom at the time. Anyway, we played Weather Machine. In fact, while he was at PAX, Emily and I were like gaming buddies for like the last week and a half.
Buds.
Gaming buds. We have shirts. And she's been wanting to play Weather Machine and wanting to teach me. So just the other night, in fact, she came over, sat down. I might let her tell the story. So she played it a few times, but she, and I think you refreshed a little, but not like...
I refreshed a little, but I didn't know we were going to play it that day. And then I was like, oh, we have a huge chunk of time.
Let's
we should
play
just do
Weather
it
Machine.
now.
So we did.
I was like...
we set it up. So I remember sending a picture of it to Alicia, saying, look what we're playing today. And Alicia, in classic fashion, said, oh no. It's not her kind of game at all. That was at 2-something.
Yeah.
Emily left my house
Yeah.
at 8?
8 sounds about right.
Yeah,
8?
because I think I got the emergency text like at 6 p.m.
So, well, we called him at one point. I can't even remember if that's after we started, but long story not totally short and ended. But we played for about, what, an hour? A little over an hour?
At least an hour, yeah.
Little over an hour. Let's say an hour, 10, hour, 15 minutes. When we realized we had been doing something incorrectly.
Very wrong.
In fact,
Very
I'm not
wrong.
even sure what made us think, is this right?
Well, oh no, I do know it was about the funding tracks at the top for anybody interested. And the reason was because we had thought every time you move, you immediately get the benefits. If you do that, you can create an infinite cycle with the government.
Oh, that's what it was.
And the lab funding tracks, and you could just keep going back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah, we
and I was
hit
like,
some
this
sort
isn't
of
right.
That couldn't have been right. We were like, no, this we're doing something wrong.
Definitely.
We trust Vital Lacerda. We're the ones that are wrong.
David looked it up on BGG. They were asking the same question. We called Ryan, and Ryan was like, "No, you guys, you're doing it all wrong."
That's actually very because I only know that so easily because that was one of my bigger complaints with Weather Machine is that you don't get to use those tracks
Almost ever.
hardly at all.
Hardly
I didn't
ever.
use it at all the entire game.
You spend so much of the game moving up them, and maybe you trigger each track once.
Yeah.
Maybe.
To give you a brief description, if you haven't played, the way we were playing it wrong is when we went to a section. When you go to the sections, you move up that track. That's part of those
3 tracks,
sections.
you move up them depending on which one you go.
And we were taking the bonuses when we did that. And the way the bonuses work is you take all the bonuses behind you on most of the
some
track,
of the
2 of the 3 tracks. The way it actually works is there's this whole other process.
Very long process.
Super long process where you get an investment token. Then you have to use that investment token to get another tile. Then you have to use another investment token to flip that tile. Guess what? When you do that, you can trigger one of the tracks.
That
and
matches
get
the
bonus.
color of the tile even.
Yes.
So it's very restrictive. When you said that, I was like, oh. Like, so you get like free bots all the time.
Yeah.
You get
Yeah,
free
we
tiles
got so
like
much
crazy.
stuff.
It was the most luxurious Vital Lacerda
He was like,
experience.
I thought this game was tight.
because we
I've
were
got-
like, I didn't have enough space for the resources I was getting.
Yep.
I was like, oh man, I can't take this. I guess I'll just lose it.
Yep.
So it
That's
was a
funny.
very different
That's
game.
funny.
So what we did, we sat for about 10 minutes saying, so
What
what
should
do you
we
want
do?
to do?
And I was like, we should just start over. This
And
is,
we
this
thought-
is not the same.
For a minute, both of us said we could just keep going. And then both of us knew that we didn't want to do
No.
that because it
It
was like,
just feels bad. You
and
know?
I was sitting there thinking, because she'd already been here for a few hours, because
played
we played
another game,
another
too.
game before that. And I was like, well, I don't think Emily wants to stay here and reset and play a whole other
And
game.
I was like, I don't want to finish this game. This game is nothing.
So we reset after an hour and 15 minutes and started from scratch. And then we did play it mostly correctly.
So then on top of that, I'm so annoyed that I forgot this rule, and then I'm like trying to make sure we have everything else right, and there's all these little things that keep
There are a
popping
lot
up,
of little
and I just
things.
feel like I got so tilted,
You-
right?
you were
that
a
I
little
was just
tilted.
like, what is happening? And then afterwards, David was like, he was watching other videos and stuff, and he was like, oh, here's a list of all the other things.
And I wasn't trying to be a jerk.
Yeah.
To
No,
be fair, both of us said, because she said she was going to go home and watch like a couple videos
Yeah.
to make sure, to get it. And for some reason, I liken this to when Alicia and I played Arkham Horror, and every session of that, there's rules that we're getting wrong and trying to figure out. And then I find myself oddly obsessed for like days wanting to get everything perfectly understood, which is what I did. I watched like a 2.5-hour playthrough after that and like found all these little tiny things.
Took him notes.
And the thing is, to be fair, and first of all, had a fantastic time playing. Despite all of that, it was just a fun time playing the
Which
game.
is
And
amazing.
I love learning the game. But the game itself is one of those games that has like a lot of tiny little
Oh.
things.
Yes,
So
so
For
many.
sure.
like, I don't care who you are. If you think you know, oh, I know everything there is to know, I could teach it perfectly. That's a tall order for anyone.
It is.
It is.
Like, there's all sorts, especially 2-player, by the way.
Yeah,
because
because it's a
2-player
little more
adds
upbeat.
another bunch of little things that you have to do when this happens and that happens. So anyway, long story short, while heavy games are not my bag, definitely not my wheelhouse, and I wouldn't say, oh man, this is my new favorite game, I do want to play it again.
Yes, tricked him. Tricked you into
now you'll
playing
be
again.
playing
I
Lacerdas.
was like, if I get just enough rules wrong, you'll have to play it again.
Just always
Well,
teach me games wrong, and then we'll have to play it again.
It's so funny that you tell this story because when John, Techie, and I were playing Chaos Order, it was very much the same process.
heard that's a pretty
We had the
heavy.
rules open, we're flipping. We had laptop open with the rules video. We're going back and forth, and I felt like every 10 minutes of gameplay, we're like, pause, stop, go back. Like we set something up wrong because this doesn't
Yeah.
make sense, or like because the game has a lot of asymmetry. All of the factions have asymmetric powers, and they're only really explained on your sheet.
Okay.
And there was a few moments where it's like, oh, I read this wrong. Oh, I really read this wrong, and it changes the whole game. So like Weather Machine's the same way, and the only reason that I feel comfortable teaching Weather Machine now, and I can say that I'm not gonna miss anything, is because every time I've taught it, I've missed something. So now I'm like, now I know. I'm like, here's the things that we always miss. It's something different every game.
Yeah, I think I'd want to make myself a checklist.
Well, and you
Yeah.
almost want, and even when I teach Weather Machine, I still keep that little player aid
Yeah, you have to.
pamphlet
For
You
sure.
have to.
next
Yeah.
to me because, especially, and I know you're probably going to talk about it too. That Weather Machine check, the phase that checks the Weather Machine is so complicated.
Yeah, I mean,
Everything about
each
it
part
is
of
so
that.
complicated. Each worker placement place has like 3 to 5 steps. Each space.
Yes.
You're not just, I'll go here and get 2 rocks. No, it's I'll go here and then it's a big long thing.
And then I do this, and then I do this, and then sometimes you start to think like, oh, I'm good at this by this time. Like I don't need to. But then you forget one of the steps, and then like 2 turns later, you're like, did I go up on the track when I went there?
Exactly.
I don't think I went
Or
up
did
on
we
the track
replace
when
did we put
Yeah,
the
did I
bad
put a
weather
thing
out?
there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, though, it sounds like I didn't like the game. I did enjoy the experience, and I definitely want to play it again.
And now we can go into doing a 3-person game because
Oh,
it is
boy.
better at more player count.
And this, you know, that this is the free sample that Emily's using to get you to play Kanban with her.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. But it was an interesting thing because we did expect. I've only played it at 2-player. You've played it at
At
more.
4, yeah.
And I do think it is one of those games that has some different feels, if you
Yes.
will, at player count. Which is, I think, what we're going to talk about next episode and next.
Well, and yeah, because the other game we played together was Mille Fiori,
Yeah.
right? And that one was very different at different player counts.
Yeah.
So like David and I played it at 2-player, the regular way you would. And it was kind of like, okay, this game's fine. David
okay.
liked it. I was like, it's
We liked
whatever.
it.
Then we played it at 4, and we got to play with my mom and with David's son,
Yeah.
Ben. And that was a hoot. That was a lot of fun. And it was much, much better at 4 players, too. And then we played it again at 2 players with a variant.
Yeah, with a variant, because we had posted a review. If you haven't seen the review, go check it out. But someone in the comments of the review said, oh, there's a 2-player variant, because we'd talked about this in the review. And I was like, oh, well, let's look into that. And I guess it was published in a magazine in Germany.
Oh.
Well, I
Wow,
forget what
okay.
the magazine is. There's a
you for the
magazine, a
comment.
board game magazine in Germany. And I went to BGG and found at least a variation of that variant.
Yeah.
And we played it. And
And it was a lot better.
Yeah.
I really liked it a lot. And it was funny because it was some of the things he was doing was exactly what I said after the first
Sure.
2-player. I was like, if we just got rid of this whole section and we covered up some of these, and that's exactly what it did.
yeah.
Plus, it was our 3rd playthrough, right? And it was very fast.
Holy cow, it was
So
fast.
fast.
At 2 players, especially with that variant, well, yeah, with that variant, because you take some of the cards out of the deck, we were just boom, 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 boom. It was a very fast game. Very good game. I'm not going to tell you what our scores were, because you need to go watch the review. But they were pretty good.
But it's it's a drafting, accessible game.
I have a feeling Emily might have won.
Oh,
I
you'd
don't
be
know.
surprised.
Oh, is that what you think? Guess
I
what?
just have a feeling. I haven't watched the video yet.
I think.
I've been
wait, did you
traveling,
win? I
so-
can't remember.
No.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
really?
okay.
Oh.
I didn't
Did I win our? Oh no! In our 4-player game, neither of us won.
No.
Both of us came in. She came in 3rd. I came in 4th.
I was gonna
My
come
son
in
won,
first.
and
Oh,
her
really?
mom beat us too.
Nice.
Yes,
nice.
yes. I was going to come in last, and Ben last turn was like, no, I'll do this move that I'll give Emily 20 points. And David was like, Ben, what are you doing?
Yeah,
It also gave Ben 10 points.
I think when you play a game like that at 4 players, like I'm a big fan. We'll talk about this in a future chit chat. It sounds like, but
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of playing at player count. But I did want to mention to you, I played a 2-player trick taking game called Haggis. Have you played that?
I've heard of it, but
Brilliant.
I've never played it.
Brilliant 2-player, like ladder game. Empty your hand, teach you vibes. You would love it because
Okay.
trick taking 2-player games.
Normal deck of cards?
No, I think
special-
you can play with a normal deck of cards actually, but it does have a special
Interesting.
deck. It's from Indie Boards and Cards. It's called Haggis.
That's cool.
That's my little pitch for you to check that game
right.
out.
Well, anyway, that's the games we've been playing. If you have any thoughts on the games you've been playing, or the games we've been playing, or AI art,
You have thoughts on AR, I'm sure.
I'm sure you have thoughts on that. Make them in the comments below. We'll get down there and discuss that with you. But until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.